Hello everyone, my name is Jen. We're actually going to rotate just a little bit because it started and that seemed weird. I have my TBR card here because I'm going to be filming a book haul in just a minute, but I just thought I'd put it in the background. I never get to show off my cart too much anymore because I've been filming in my living room again. But yeah, that's my beautiful cart. Isn't it pretty? The best part about my cart is like putting my stickers on it. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted. Everyone, thank you for coming to this video. This is going to be my May stats and favorites. If you're new here, because we have new viewers all the time, I don't talk about every book I've read in wrap-ups because I read lots of books, as you will shortly see. I read many books a month. So what I do is I actually do weekly reading wrap-ups. I will tag that above my playlist of my weekly wrap-ups where I actually talk about every book I read is in there. What I do for my monthly wrap-up is I tell you my reading stats and then I go over my 5 favorite books or books that I haven't talked about as much. No surprise, guys. 4 out of the 5 are Mafia this month. I'm sorry. They were my favorites. I was trying to pick other ones, but I have been binging Mafia so hard. If you don't know already, I actually just filmed that video before this one, even though that one's going to go up first. I have a Mafia romance readathon coming up this next weekend, and I haven't been able to stop reading Mafia. Like, it's the best. So a lot of my favorites were Mafia this month. But first, let's talk about my stats. We'll go over those real quick, and then we'll get into my favorites where I'll just, you know, tell you how I felt about them. So let's start with how many books. I read 64 books in the month of May. That was 20,043 pages, which averages out to 668 pages per day. This was actually, I feel like my page count was like, I don't know where it was at compared to last month, but in the 20s, 20,000 is usually about my page count. And yes, that does include audio and physical because to me, reading is reading and I do lump it all together. That's just what I do here. Reading with audiobooks is still reading, y'all. It still is. That was in the form of 9 arcs, most of which is books by Maggie, which we'll get to, 11 physical books, 39 ebooks, and 33 audiobooks. And that ebooks does include both Kindle Unlimited and then books that I purchased. So it was actually a really pretty fair split between like audio and everything. This is like kind of doubled up a little bit. I mention this every now and then because sometimes I am reading the physical book and listening along. That is one of the greatest joys of my reading life. Like, no joke. I love doing that. The genres of these books were 18 dark romance, 18 contemporary, 16 historical romance, 2 fantasy, 2 paranormal, 1 dystopian, 1 sci-fi, 1 erotic, and 1 YA fantasy. Don't have many YA these days, but it was a good one. That one was actually an arc that I had by one of my favorite YA authors, so I still read her books once in a while. Trisha Leventhal, if you're wondering. And then my ratings for these books were, I had 3 DNFs, so technically I did read 61 books, and I don't actually count the pages of the books I DNF in my pages. I know some people do. The way that I track my books, if it gets a DNF, I don't enter it into my spreadsheet just to like save my brain. But there was 3 DNFs. I had 1 2-star, 3 2.5 stars, 4 3 stars, 6 3.5 stars, 28 4 stars, 7 4.5 stars, 11 5 stars, and 1 6-star, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it was a pretty above average month. I mean, I was kind of surprised I didn't have as many 5 stars as I was expecting. Most all of them, as I said, were Mafia books. I was binging a couple series this month. But I mean, having most of my books be 4 stars and above is always the goal. That's always the goal. It means I was reading good quality stuff. So let's dive right into my top 5 books of the month. And so we will go ahead and start with my 6-star read, which I actually just read this past week. And this will be kind of quick because I can't talk too much about this book because it's not out yet. And I know, I'm sorry. I really try not to do this. I've done it a couple times where the arc that I read of a book is just so good that I have to have it on my list, even though you guys won't be able to read it for a little while. So this particular one is Savage Tracker by Maggie Cole. This was a 6-star read for me. This one is book 5. So that means that one's coming out August 1st. So it is a little ways away. This also happened with like Neon Gods. It was a 6-star read for me, and that one's just coming out now. So, but anyway, okay. That being said, because this book doesn't come out, I can't say too much, but I'm going to tell you kind of the main things that I liked about it. This one is about Serena and Albrecht, and I feel like that's not too much of a spoiler because one thing that Maggie Cole is doing with this series is that so much of them are all happening at the same time. Like the lives of these couples intersect. You know, it's the Ivanov brothers. There's 2 brothers and 3 brothers who are all cousins. So it's like 5 brothers all together, but they're in, you know, that's how it's kind of separated. And they all work together. This is the Mafia War series. And in this one, we have Serena, who she has recently divorced from a horrible ex-husband, and her lawyer, her divorce lawyer, is dating like Albrecht's brother. I think it's his brother. It's either a cousin or a brother, but you know. And they find Serena a place to stay that is at a condominium where Albrecht also lives, or the apartments, condominiums, wherever. And so they ask Albrecht to keep an eye on her. And I really I don't want to spoil it, but also I want to tell you why I love this so much. So I won't tell you the scenario, but I'll tell you the trope. This book has BDSM as healing. And that's kind of all I want to say right now. When this book is ready to come out, number one, I'm going to be promoting the fuck out of it because I'm so in love with it. But it mixes the stuff I love with Mafia and the stuff of like overcoming trauma with this couple who is trying to figure out, because our heroine was in a very bad situation. And so she has instincts and patterns of behavior that are very unhealthy for her. But some of those patterns and behavior are certain aspects of BDSM that make Albrecht very excited. But it's about finding a happy medium where the kind of BDSM that they will practice won't be damaging to Serena and also won't be damaging to Albrecht. Because here's the thing, your dominant or your top or your master, he can be in an unhealthy situation too if he's being given more responsibility or more power than he's supposed to have. Like, you both have to be on the same page of like what you're each willing to give and how it's supposed to work. And so that's all that I'm willing to say since this book is a ways away from coming out, but I'm not going to shut up about Maggie Cole. I love her. She's a sweet person. And I want you all, if you love Mafia, to read this because it's so good. So get started with the series now. The first 3 books are out. You'll meet the Ivanov brothers and you'll have a good old time. Okay? Then the next one I want to talk about is The Rebel by Sophie Lark. I told you there's going to be a lot of Mafia in this. This is book 2 in the Kingmaker series. This release came out like the first or second week of May, and this one is about Miles Griffin, who is the son of Ada and Callum, which is the hero and the heroine from Brutal Prince. And he is in his he's in his second or third year. I think he's in his 3rd year at Kingmaker Academy. This is kind of like Hogwarts for the Mafia kids, and it's a place where they can go to learn different skills that it will take to be a Mafia leader, or to be an accountant, or to be a spy, or to be like just any role they would have in Mafia. So it's brilliant how it's set up, guys. Like, it's so cool. Now, Miles has had life pretty good. I mean, he is the son of the brutal prince and his bride. His parents are really kick-ass. And so he's kind of just like skating through his time at Kingmakers. He's making connections and he's preparing for his life after Kingmakers. That's what he's doing. And he stays out of people's business. He's not there to make enemies. Like I said, he's there to make connections. But then he sees Zoe Romero, who she's trapped in a marriage contract with this sadistic psychopath who is manipulating her and her sister while they're at this school, and he is really trying to prove his dominance and power over her. And it's terrifying. And Miles catches a glimpse of a very desperate moment on Zoe's part, and he steps in. And this is kind of breaking his personal code and everything that he's about. And then he talks with Zoe a little bit, and he starts to get to know her. And this is a bad move for him. But it really could be Zoe's like saving grace, you know? It really could. And that's what I felt when I was reading it, is that I know Miles is a good guy. He is, for being in the Mafia, like in the parents that he had, like he is a good guy. But he's also someone who's not there to make waves. And so this connection he has with Zoe, it has to be strong enough and deep enough that he would be willing to enact a plan, a masterminded plan, where he is able to save Zoe from this arranged marriage without destroying his future and Zoe's future and blowing it all up and starting a war that would have consequences outside of Kingmakers, that could have, you know, great consequences for his family. You know, he could be dragging his family into it. There is a certain thing that happens in this book, because there are rules at Kingmakers about what you can and cannot do, and there are contracts that you sign when you go there, that there are certain rules you will not break. And in this book, Sophie Lark shows us what happens when you do. And when that hammer, when that blade falls, shit goes from being a fun little romp at Mafia College to being a life or death situation, and for consequences that are devastating. Like, I don't want to fully spoil this here, but there's a thing that happens that doesn't directly hurt our hero, but it makes you have a scary thought about what might have been if things had went differently, what the consequences would have been. And it gave me the chill. It was shocking. It was shocking. This book was amazing. This was 5 stars. I'm not done talking about Sophie Lark yet in my life. I will talk about her forever. I can't wait. She's going to be coming on my channel when The Bully gets released. The Bully gets released, I believe, on June 16th. I can't remember. It comes out the week of that. And then she's going to be on my channel on June 17th. So I think it comes out on the 13th, and she's going to be on my channel on the 17th. And we're going to interview her. So you have time to read some Sophie Lark before then. It's going to be amazing. Then I have another new release to talk about. And this was one that the author had actually reached out to me and asked me to be on her ARC team. And I loved this cover. Look at this cover. And so I was like, yeah, I will definitely try this book out. So this book is kind of Mafia like adjacent, at least in the beginning. And it's about this girl named Davina. And I think the hero's name is Liam. I forgot because I didn't write it down on my paper. But she witnesses a crime happen, and she ends up in witness protection. And this crime is committed by a certain group of the Mafia. And she ends up in witness protection, and one of the people looking over her is Liam. I think it's Liam. And he is a police officer, but he is a police officer with ties to the Mafia. His adopted brother is like the head of the Mafia in their area, and he strategically has placed his brothers, his blood brothers, in positions of power so that they can help him when he needs it. And so Liam gets put in charge of being one of her guards, and he slowly starts to realize that she is involved in something that is way above what they expected. There is a dog in this that is a guard. It made me very happy. I believe it's, I believe he's a Doberman too. I can't remember, but I was visualizing him as a Doberman, even if I like might be wrong, but I think it is because my dad actually raises Dobermans, so I have a soft spot for them. And our heroine, she's so traumatized and afraid that she doesn't even want, you know, our hero to be around her. She isn't sleeping well, she isn't eating, and so he actually volunteers his dog to be her guard through the night. And she's actually able to sleep better because of that. Like, it just warmed my heart so much. So this is actually kind of a slow burn because he mostly is staying away from her. Like, he's her guard. He's watching outside. He's not in there. So this kind of is like a bodyguard thing too. And when things start to escalate and he discovers why she's in witness protection and what it has to do with him, that we see the Mafia ties really come out. So yeah, A Bullet Between Us by Dosal. I gave this book 5 stars. I can't wait for the sequel, which is going to be about Luca, who is that mafia boss and is Liam's blood brother. His name probably isn't Liam. I hope I've put it on the screen if I'm like wrong. I'm so sorry if I said the wrong name this whole time. But I just so enjoyed this book. And this author had never written Mafia before. She had written a couple other books, but she'd written them under a different pen name. And yeah, she reached out to me to read the arc, and I was more than happy to do it. It was wonderful. And I finally did it. I read The Rebel King by Kennedy Ryan. This is the second book in the All the King's Men series, which is like the first 2 are a duet, but then Queen Move is technically in that series. So y'all know I had a lot of problems with the first book. It has one of my bookish pet peeves, which is big time jumps. I really just am not a fan of those. They just aren't my fave. But I love the hero. He's wonderful. And our heroine is so strong and amazing. This was hard for me as well because I don't like reading books about politics. No matter how important they are, what they are, they're just always tough. But because this is like a fictional, but what we want is an idealized political situation, I was able to suspend my like disbelief and personal beliefs and just really enjoy this story because Maxim, our hero, he's amazing. He's alpha. He's so loving and protective, and he's that kind of alpha that just gets me so hot. And then our heroine, she is so fierce, and she's also turned on by his protectiveness, but is also like, hey babe, there are like lines here. And I just really loved it. I mean, that's the thing. I knew when I was reading Kingmaker, I knew that I was going to love it, even though I was frustrated with where we were at. Like, I knew that I was going to get there. So I just needed some breathing room before I read this one because of my certain pet peeve that I have. I was so angry. And there was also a cliffhanger. And we pick up right where we ended in the last one, and we're in it. It's happening. So, yeah, I really enjoyed myself. I listened to this one while I was on the drive home, and it was wonderful. It was a good one. And then the last one that I want to talk about is another Mafia, and this is a recent release. I have a vlog, it maybe already came out or is about to come out, where I talked about this book, and that is book 5 in the Filthy Feckers, Filthy Hot by Serena Akeroyd. This book is about Aiden Jr. and Savannah. This is an age gap. This is kind of a second chance romance because Aiden meets Savannah 5 years ago when she's investigating his family, and he has the choice of kind of like taking her out or like observing her and seeing what she knows, and she actually imparts some information to him that helps him to ferret out some pretty bad people. And what's also cool is like Savannah's kind of a fangirl of the mob which my friend Tiffany, who does updates of like all the books she reads on her Instagram, it's fucking fantastic. She said in one of hers that she's like, the reason we love Savannah so much is that she is like an inserted character for us who read Mafia romances, because she's like a fan of the mob, even though that's not logical or right to be a fan of like organized crime. And I just really love how Savannah is, again, so turned on by a hero's alphaness, but also fights back. There's a particular scene in here where she's like, babe, that is not gonna fucking fly. Like, it is, I am never gonna sit back and watch you put yourself in danger for me. I'm always gonna jump in and be right beside you because your life to me is just as important as my life is to you. And I just love that kind of like, of course he's still gonna do what he has to do to make sure she's protected over himself. He can't help but feel so like loved by that. It's wonderful. Also in this book, in the beginning of this book, Serena Akeroyd has, I mean, I know wonderful is kind of the wrong thing to say, but she has a trigger warning at the beginning of this book that I want to acknowledge because the way that she writes it, it tears me up so much. So first off, she has the warning page, like it says warning, and she says this story contains scenes that allude to violent and graphic torture, child sexual abuse, rape, and suicide. Please take this trigger warning to heart. So I also want you to do that. If you've been reading this series in order, you probably know to what we are alluding to, because that part of it, specifically the child sexual abuse, that is alluded to in previous books. Something that had me so impressed with this one is that I recently had reread parts of Filthy, the first book in the series, because I am recommending this book for the Mafia Romance Readathon. And I remembered that our hero Finn in that book, he has a certain way that he feels about the Catholic Church. And I mean, he has his explanations in that book, which are perfectly valid, where he feels the hypocrisy comes from of their father making them go to confession and to church, all the while they will murder people, have murdered people, and will murder people again. And he doesn't appreciate the hypocrisy of it. But the very first chapter of Filthy Hot is from Finn's point of view, where we see the specific situation that first made Finn feel that way. And so there is this beautiful author's note that comes after the trigger warning that I'm going to read to you. I read it in my reading vlog of this book, but I'm going to read it again in case you're someone who's not interested in reading vlogs. And I want you to understand why I love this author so much and how she just like speaks to my heart and is able to do it with a Mafia book. Okay, so here's her author's note. Dear reader, light of my life, acceptor of my craziness, hopefully adorer of my feckers. There are some scenes in this one. Trust in the trigger warning. Back away, please. But you can have faith that I never write anything with the view of being gratuitous. And know this, I'm angry on your behalf. If you're a survivor, feel each hit and know that I'd make them all bleed for you. With that being said, welcome back to Hell's Kitchen. May you fall for this fecker as much as you've tumbled for his brothers. Much love, Serena. There's some tough scenes in this book, guys. Like, it's hard. It's hard. And it's hard because you know this happens in real life. And it's hard because specifically I love these characters. But when she says, feel each hit and know that I'd make them bleed for you, that signs of violent torture that her trigger warning is for is against the perpetrators of these horrific crimes. And so there's something so cathartic about it, whether you've experienced sexual abuse, child abuse, any of those things, or you're just someone who thinks it's the most despicable thing in the world. When you read a book where the author feels the same as you and she puts that hatred where it's supposed to go, and you're able to experience this raw, visceral, cruel things and the vengeance that the filthy feckers are able to get in your name and in the name of the children this has happened to, it is so beautiful. And so this book was 5 stars, and I don't even care that I had a bunch of Mafia books in this one. So there you go. That is my May reading stats and favorites. If you're not a Mafia fan, I'm sorry that this was a lot of that for you, but I really think that if you're someone who's not a Mafia fan, maybe you've just been reading the wrong Mafia. Like, I'll say that. There are so many kinds of Mafia. There's so many different levels of it. And I'm just saying, like, if you like dark romance, I think you should see if you can find a Mafia that you like, because everything I love about dark romance sits within Mafia somewhere. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm so appreciative to my channel members and to everyone who supports me. Thank you to the authors who have been chatting with me lately and supporting me and sharing about me. It means so much, and I'm so happy that you would choose my channel to watch. Like, honestly, you all mean so much to me. Wow. All right, that's enough emotions. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and if you'd like to watch some more videos, you can do that right now.